Holy Drive, airing every Sunday at 9 p.m. My name is Jimmy Hanks, and welcome to tonight's episode. And tonight we shall be speaking to the former president of Ghana Law Society, a prominent lawyer in this nation, a mother. But first, I'll have a small break and I'll be right back with a guest. I'll be back. Welcome, Council NABASA Fiona on the Holy Drive.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, you have a very beautiful smile. Yes, the times I've met you, you're always having that smile. Whether on an event, whether on compound, you're always happy. What inspires you to always keep that smile on? Because at times I know the days are very hard.
Well, I would say it's the joy of the Lord.
Yes.
He promises a peace that passes understanding, and the reason is it passes understanding is it's not supposed to be depending on the physical things that we're seeing.
True.
Yeah, because even a smile can be ministry. it can make someone's day. It can encourage someone. It can break ice. When I was growing up, I grew up with conservative parents, and smiling was regarded as naughty and unserious. And I remember a teacher changing my place in class because I smiled too much. So it wasn't always welcome. But I have come to since learn that the things that are weird about you are sometimes the things God will work through.
You're right. Wow. That's so beautiful. So who is NABASA Fiona Ward?
NABASA. I like how you've started with NABASA because NABASA means God is able. Yeah. It's actually a short form of my name. I was born Niwabasa, meaning it is Him that is able, because I was a sickly child. And my grandmother gave me this name thinking that I wouldn't last. Oh. Because I was a very sickly child. So she was like, if this girl lasts, it is because God is able. It is only God who is able to make her last. And looking at my life, I feel that when you look at everything that has happened and how it has happened, it is evident that it is not I who has done this, but God. So who am I? I'm a Christian. I'm a daughter, of course. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm a leader, but I believe that my greatest calling is to build up leaders. I am a lawyer, I'm an advocate, and a communicator as well. So I've done a lot of things in my life. I'm a teacher, I love teaching, and I've taught the law, I've taught leadership, I've taught all sorts of things, but it satisfies me to share knowledge and to absorb it as well.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're also a journalist, right?
I don't know. I'm just a communicator, as I said.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, God has blessed you. And I think today your mom looks back and she thanks the Lord, I believe. Having been a sickly child and today God has brought you this far. I think she's humbled, right? Yeah,
she's... I think I gave her the hardest time. I might have been sickly, but I was very, very naughty and I disturbed her a lot. I was very naughty at home, so she was always surprised if I got accolades at school. So I think that she sees God in my life. She sees the footprint of God in my life, because she knows if it wasn't for God capturing me at a young age, she would probably have had a really tougher time with me as an adult.
Wow. Accepting Christ.
Because I was always opinionated and I was always going my own way. So God finding me at a very young age, I was 10 years old, I think changed my trajectory.
Wow, at the age
significantly.
At the age of 10 years, you gave your life to Christ. Wow.
I can tell you, at the age of 10, I probably had more sin than a lot of people. Yeah.
Meaning by the time you turned, you changed.
I was a potential criminal mind. So you never know.
Wow. So God had his mercy on you at a very young age. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
you'd be something crazy by now.
Yep.
Wow. So briefly, Council, where do you come from?
I have a very rich Ugandan history. I come from, my father comes from Kanungu, in the beautiful hills over there of Kambuga. And my mother comes from Bara in Kashari. And then my parents met in Mbale when they were working there.
Wow.
After my mom had finished her course in Kianda College in Kenya, and then they moved to Night Hill in Jinja. They got married, and I was born and bred in Jinja, in Busoga. And then, I met a fantastic man on campus, and he turns out to be, his mother is Japadola and his father is Alur. So I'm a proper Ugandan. My children are a cocktail of everything Ugandan, every region.
I'm imagining West, East, like all regions you have.
All regions.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, you have a bit of speaking very many languages, I guess.
Yes. I speak quite a few languages.
I was trying to connect this to NABASA wall. I was trying to connect.
Yeah.
Then later on I realized that, the husband could be from that side.
Yeah.
Wow. So Council, what are some of the most painful experiences that you encountered while growing up as a girl?
Well, as a girl, I think one of the most painful experiences was losing my brother at the age of 10. He was my best friend. I think I always say if he hadn't passed, I probably wouldn't have made friends. I and him and my little brother were born three. We were always close and we were always together. So he got a dog bite.
Oh, sorry.
And they treated him with expired medicine. So that was a very, very painful experience. I had just given my life to Christ, so it would have been a very interesting, it was a big test, I think. And it nearly destroyed my family, my parents. Nobody was ready for that. My grandparents, he was a kind of boy who is called Andrew Tugume. But I think his name was prophetic. It means let's be strong.
Yes.
So I think his name ministered to us much later after he passed. But his passing was very significant because it made me more responsible for my little brother, the last born. It also took away, there's a scripture that says, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. So I feel that when Andrew left me, I was able to open my eyes and see other friends and see other things that existed. But it also strengthened my faith in a strange way. Another painful thing for me was growing up. I was born in the 80s, so we were victims of war. I remember, I think I was 3 years old. Some soldiers came and took the people in our boys' quarters who were renting. And it was about 3 a.m. and our parents took us down. We hid near the river because, our home was just near the river. And they shot everybody at our gate. It was so there were many weird things that came from war. We lost a lot of loved ones. And then as we're getting out of war, HIV came in a big way and started sweeping streets. And it was very painful to lose people like that. So coming to being a teenager, I think for me, one of the most painful experiences was my parents breaking up, their marriage. And it was a very significant experience for me because my parents have always been a huge part of my life. And as children, you don't know how much that will affect you. I was much older than my little brother. And our parents are fantastic because they separated, but they remained married. They didn't divorce. and they didn't move on. They didn't marry anybody else. So we still remained the center of their lives. They did everything together. I remember I lost my dad just in June, but my parents talked every day. And I love that about them, that they were better friends even when they split. But at the time they split, I thought the world had ended.
I know.
So it was a difficult time. And as an older child, you blame yourself. So there are a lot of children out there who are taking in and absorbing the problems their parents have and thinking that that's them. No, it is not you. It is not your fault. Parents are also human, and they also make mistakes, and they also need our forgiveness, but they also need us to allow them to make mistakes. You know, children expect their parents to be perfect. We hold our parents to impossible standards. Now I'm a parent and I want a little grace from my children, you know?
Yes.
So I sit down and I tell my children, you know, if so-and-so's parents are split, it's not their fault. It's not the parents' fault either. Things happen in life. We don't always agree. But the point is, how do you handle that? So those are some of the dramatic, painful experiences that I had in my life. Another painful experience that you wouldn't maybe rate like that was that all my life, after my brother passed away to medical negligence, it was expired medication, I decided I wanted to be a doctor, and I trained for it. I read every medical journal I could find, and I was doing PCB, and I really was good at it. And then my parents literally forced me to do law. Oh. So that was a very painful experience, and it was one of those things that I have found when I'm counseling girls or boys. I find that some of them are even suicidal because their parents are forcing them to take a certain course. And I'm telling you, you don't have the full picture. Your parents are your first mentors. I do not regret listening to them. At that time, I thought I had dictators for parents. I was annoyed, I was depressed, I was all sorts of things. But boy, am I glad that I did law, because I remember my first year, one of my roommates was a medical student. She brought a skull to school, a skull to the dormitory to study. I moved out of the dormitory for 2 weeks. I moved out of Mary Stewart for 2 weeks because there's no way I was going to sit. And then I thought this was going to be me.
Operating people.
I can't stand smells, so I don't know how they've done that. So, and I found a way to practice my passion for medicine. I teach Lama's classes. These are classes for antenatal, prenatal classes. And then I also help women give birth. So I've birthed 7 babies, I'm very proud to say. But I think my midwifery days are over. I'll stick to teaching the Lama's classes.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah. But I think under the as you've moved on, if I may say, you've really appreciated the career you chose, I believe.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know, I always tell people that when you are younger, everything looks black and white. And you think if you take path A, you will die. You think if they make me study law, it is what I'm going to do all my life. It is not true. An undergrad degree is just supposed to open your mind to opportunities, to get you into spaces. It is that thing that opens doors for you. Then you have the rest of your life to decide what you want to do. So do not think that just because uncle has said this is the only course I'm going to pay fees for, your life has ended. I would say it is just the beginning. Just be grateful that you have the ability and opportunity to get your first degree, which is very, very important in our generation now, because you're competing with people with doctorates.
Of course.
But use it to use the SST you studied, the history you studied. I've found that when I travel for work or in these human rights things, or when I was president, I found that I used a lot of the history that I studied that I never thought I would ever use, you know. A lot of the civic education that I studied, a lot of you find that all these things that are put together somehow if you apply yourself, there will be a time that they will be very crucial to you.
Wow.
So embrace knowledge.
Wow. Embrace knowledge. Wow. So, Counsel, you've told us about how your parents separated. That was really very bad. In that time, as a young child, how were you able to be raised up? You grew up in whose hands? The dad, the mom, the relatives?
I was lucky. I told you my parents, we came first to them.
Wow.
So it was like a shared custody. We spent holidays with dad. We even went to his village. We lived with mom. But that was from my S4. So we were quite big kids by then. So I spent my childhood with both of them.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was lucky in that way. There are people who see separation of their parents much, much younger. But because my parents made sure that they didn't ever use us in their problems, we sort of benefited and had a relationship with both of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Counsel, today we are looking at you as a very great counsel in this country. You've been able to represent people in different avenues, you've seen you've been a former leader of Uganda Law Society. These are all credits we give back to you. We would love to know how you've been able to merge out of the many, from the east, deep in the village in the east, how you've been able to rise, beat the odds, and reach where you are today.
It's funny, it's a very broken road. I've told you, and you said that maybe I've represented people from many spheres because I have also come from those many spheres. Being raised by a single mom, and then having to retain a relationship with your father, having to deal with many people from different places. I think the biggest thing I can accord this to, of course, God is first. God has been in everything, in every nuance. My parents had a lot to do with it. My parents are people that give of themselves, and my grandparents, I mean my grandfather on my dad's side and my grandmother on my mom's side, they're the ones that I found. And they were both, my grandfather was a lay person in the church, and he planted, I think, I don't know how many churches, and he was a giver, he was a community leader, and he was very passionate about justice. In fact, the week before he passed at about 106, the RDC said he had walked up to him to give him a lecture on corruption. So that was my grandfather. And then my grandmother was a woman that loved the Lord, and people found solace in her. People would always go to her. At her death, so many people showed up claiming that she was their parent. You know what I mean?
Wow, I do.
It was, so then my parents love people, and they've always had people around them. So they were always helping people solve problems, do things. But my dad was very big on justice, on being the change you want to see. He was a guild president.
Oh, wow.
At Makere. So he was also very, very political. And I think he intentionally trained me to think politically. The first book he gave me was, I think I was about 6 years old, was How Europe Underdeveloped Africa.
Really?
My mom is an avid reader. She was an avid reader, and she loved stories, and she loved people, and she still does. So she used to host, when we were in Ginger, I think every Sunday would host the whole street for lunch or something like that. And she also used to have, because we were in Ginger, and those days traveling from Ginger to Kampala took almost a whole day. When people would come to Ginger for anything, it was our home they would stay at. So growing up in a family like that, I grew up knowing that, appreciating relationships, but knowing that there was a challenge, that you have to be of value to your society. You have to give back in some way. You don't sit down and keep quiet when there is an injustice. And that shaped my narrative a lot. So my parents were my first biggest mentors, and I give them credit for that. And then God started giving me amazing mentors. I remember my P5 teacher, he was called Mr. Care. He believed in me. I was so skinny and very scared of wildlife, but you know, he made me a brownie. He like instilled in me all these skills. And now I'm actually, it's funny, almost nobody knows about it, but I serve as the district scout head.
Hey, wow.
Yeah, you know, and that started with Mr. Care, you know, and you know what scouts do. And then when we got to, I got to secondary school, actually the whole primary as a prefect, either class prefect or timekeeper. I remember P5 as a timekeeper or something else. So the teachers that made me a prefect, because those days these were not elective positions, and if they had been elective, I would never have stood because I was very shy and reserved and even naughty. So the teachers that believed in me, you know, that sent me into those positions, the teachers that sent me for quizzes. I used to do a lot of quizzes in the district. The teachers that taught me public speaking without even me really knowing that this is what they were doing. Those were serious empowerers, should I say. When I went to secondary school, there were not positions of leadership were for volunteering and standing up and campaigning, and so there's no way. So I did absolutely nothing in that sphere. In Namagunga, what I did is I enjoyed my solitude. I read my books, and I also read my novels, and I also read my medical journals, and I kept away from people. So I was quite the hermit in Gungas. But coming to campus, I think I want to thank my pastor, Pastor Fred Wantante. He was a very key. When we moved to Kampala, when I was in secondary school, I used to write to the pastor and ask everything. I'm a very inquisitive person and argumentative. So when you know your teenage friends are talking about the Holy Spirit, you don't understand, I'll write to the pastor. And now I love the anonymity of writing a letter, and this pastor has never seen you. I used to go to church, but I'd never walked up to him and told him, my name is so. So I'd hide in the crowd and disappear. So for 6 years, I wrote to this pastor, and he used to respond. But I thought, you know, that churches have, what are they called? Like a secretariat that responds to letters from everybody. So that's what I thought. And then in my S6 back, I decided, let me go for ministry. Let me go and join maybe the choir or something. So I got to the church, and I bump into him, and he asks, what's your name? I say, Fiona. He's like, oh, where are you from? I say, Namagunga. He's like, oh, my daughter Fiona from Namagunga. Oh, I felt so undressed.
I know.
Because, you know, when you think something is anonymous, you're very free. So I told him everything. He had counseled me over the years through my teenage issues, through the separation of my parents, he had been that mentor that didn't even know what impact he had in my life. And then, of course, I grew up in a school where there was a bit of religious intolerance. And there was a time they had even banned religious texts. So we used to smuggle Rema Bible school material, and at some point I thought I wanted to be a pastor or something. So that was also mentorship of sorts. So I'm just saying to young people out there, even if you don't have fantastic people in your life, you have fantastic people on the phone that you can listen to. You have fantastic people in the books that you can read that will change the way you see the world. My political, the way I was formed, I told you that my father was very political. My mom's family are leaders. So one of the things that I learned at a very early age was to look for should I say, political mentors. Yes, I remember reading The Mustard Seed and looking at, reading the different stories, you know, Road to Freedom, Nelson Mandela. But the one of the people that influenced me the most was Mamdani Ali. He used to do a program on UTV about the history of Africa, and he would talk about Pan-Africanism and what it means, and he would talk about the heroes of Africa like Kwame Nkrumah, Menelik, all these people that shaped what Africa is. And I wanted to be like that, you know, and I was like, yes, I want to be like those people.
You really had a lot.
So I was a strange child because all the people I sort of looked to and listened to in that space were men. And yet I was a woman, so it was quite strange.
That's why I wanted to become a man at one point, right?
I wanted to be a boy at some point. I thought the men had it good, but I love being a woman. So that was also part of my forming, especially at university. When I started doing ministry, working in the legal aid clinic, I used to volunteer there. I started seeing a lot of things, the gender issues, the problems in our society, the opportunities that men had that they were not using, and the opportunities that women were being denied. So I decided, you know, it's a good thing that I'm a woman, because women need someone who sees their side, right?
Of course.
Yeah, and I felt like I was that person. I had a very interesting time at campus, and one of the things that shaped me there was being in various fellowships, and which grew my leadership skills, my communication skills. I was in a drama club called Celebration Zoe, so we were able to write plays and act them and innovate and take them all over East Africa. For me, that was a big deal. And also multitasking, the ability to multitask right now started at campus. I was in 5 ministries, I was doing law, I was in church, I was active in church, I was leading the choir and teaching Sunday school. So it was a whole mix of things, but I think they contributed. I told you it's a broken road. They contributed to who I am right now.
Wow, what a journey.